What does it take to create and sustain success? Today, I have Tyler on the podcast, and we have an amazing episode. And it's mostly mindset because we both have this understanding that if you don't have a clear mindset, it's going to be hard to be successful with your real estate investing, let alone anything else in life. And even if you are successful, you might not even feel that level of success or be able to sustain that success. I have no doubt that you're going to enjoy some of the vulnerable parts of the conversation and some of the joyful parts of the conversation. It's so endearing and inspiring. And so stick around to the end of the episode to get the final gems for sure. Remember, if you haven't already subscribed, you can subscribe. It's free, absolutely free. And it helps promote Ask Me How I Know, and so that it reaches more people. And it's just a great way that you can support the podcast. So thank you for doing that. Thanks for sharing. And let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to another amazing episode of Ask Me How I Know. It seems that I've been having a lot of great conversations with people within the real estate investing space that are also really passionate about mindset. And I am so stoked to have you on the podcast, Tyler. Welcome to Ask Me How I Know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm so stoked to be on the podcast. I am. I'm grateful for the opportunity. We were talking a little bit off camera, and I told her that she asked me forever ago, and I feel like I've been chomping at the bit to get on and have the opportunity. So thank you very, very much.
Oh, thank you. It's such a pleasure. And for anyone listening, if you're not on YouTube watching this, which I don't really promote it that much, but you can see a pigmentation difference. And that also reflects like a difference of our geography. Very far north Idaho, up on the Canadian border, and out in the tropics. So I'm glad that everybody gets to enjoy life, because I'm a mountain girl. So I'm like, oh, this is my space. But I'm glad that you're in your space too.
Oh, I love it. That's the thing. The world has so much beauty to offer. I love to travel, man. And I love Maui. I love waking up here every morning and seeing the beauty, but I love traveling other places. And, I was just in Utah and the mountains, like the whole time I was just like, geez, these mountains are just gorgeous, Isn't
it amazing? I think when you live life with that, just, accepting everything around you as like, oh my gosh, look how beautiful. I was out mountain biking last night, and they were like kind of joking around, like teasing me because I'm hooting and hollering. And I pull up to the group at like just one of those little, let's make sure everybody's not broken and bleeding and dying, and regrouping. and they're like, hey, is that you? Some of the new writers. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, we're alive. Like, we're here in these mountains and we get to mountain bike. Like, what a privilege we have. What a blessing.
Okay. I'll tell you how much I relate to that, because I love to go surfing. Anytime there's a swell, I'll go surfing in the morning. And what I love about that is there are multiple times where I'll like be catching a wave and I'll be like, God, he's like, woo! Like, it's just amazing, right? Or I'll crash and wreck and just like look like an idiot. And then I just start laughing like, oh my gosh, it makes me laugh. I look at Haleakala in the background and I'm just like, it puts me in awe. And it's like all those emotions, first thing in the morning, it's the best.
It is okay. So I wasn't even going to go here, but now that we have this connection, do you notice this connection between like personal growth and development, just mindset and everything, with what you were doing physically? Because I know, like, if I'm out pushing physically uphill, like everything I do with mountain biking or whatever I'm doing in the mountain wilderness, it pushes me so intensely, and I have to have that. And it just like pulls things out that I didn't know were inside of me.
Yeah. Oh, totally, man. Once again, I don't know where I picked this up or or maybe it's natural. I don't know, but I don't know. I love to have fun first off, and I love to be happy also. So, but I will say, like, I'll be out surfing or doing anything physical, like you just said. And if I'm struggling through, we usually have one of two reactions. We either are frustrated, right? Gosh, damn, like, why can't I figure this out, right?
Yeah.
Or you just laugh like, oh my gosh, like, look at me, I'm trying to figure this out. But here's what's interesting. When I find myself laughing, I'm having fun, And then guess what happens? You figure it out because you're focused, you're just having fun, you're enjoying it. And, then physically you get through whatever it is that you're trying to get through. So and that applies to anything. I teach some 3-day real estate training classes every now and then. And I do this activity where it's challenging for people, and I'll see them working in groups, and some people will just be so frustrated and they'll even like slam a pen down. And then you'll see other people like literally just laughing like, oh my gosh, what am I can't find it. I can't see it, but those people find it and see it because they're laughing.
It's interesting, like the endorphins that are released through laughter. So I've always tried to like, you get hurt, injured, like whatever. If you default to laughter, it definitely just releases different endorphins and helps you see in so much clarity.
Totally. Absolutely agree. It's a life hack for sure.
Life hack. Well, let's talk about some life hacks for sure. There's a lot of clutter in people's heads, don't you think? Like, oh, yeah. I call it stinking thinking, but that's kind of, because I used to teach elementary school and everything. But, what are some strategies? Because I look at what you've accomplished with your real estate investing and where you began and where the lifestyle that you've created for you and your family. And it's what most people look at you and they'd say, oh my gosh, he's an anomaly. He's living the dream. And they have all the excuses and the clutter just like flourishing. I picture Pigpen from Charlie Brown, right? Like it's like Pigpen in their head. So how did you overcome? Because I don't believe that anybody's really that special. We're all humans and we have hard wiring. And so we all kind of have this Pigpen thing going on. And some of us learn how to manage Pigpen. So I'm wondering if that relates, if you had that kind of going on in your head at some point in your life. And if you did, how did you overcome?
Always. There's no matter where you're at in life. I mean, so first off, yes, always. No matter where you're at in life, if you're trying to grow, growth is hard at any level. And, so anytime, if you don't have those uncertainties, right? If you don't have those doubts in your head or, the stinking thinking in your head, you're probably not growing. I mean, growth at any stage is hard, and it's growth for a reason. And if you've never done something like that, or trying something new or trying something hard, there's going to be uncertainties, I love with what you said, because I feel like, meaning that people just think that maybe he's an anomaly or you're an anomaly or whoever. And anytime you have somebody that is speaking or teaching or on stage or whatever, you just feel like that person just has it all figured out.
They figured it out. I mean, They're the one person.
That's it. Yep. That's it. And it's just not true. It's just, we know that, right? It's not true. People will say a lot of the times that I'm, that I'm confident. You come off confident, right? And that's great. I like to portray that in the outside world as much as possible. But, your initial question is like, how do we get through that? Or what do we do? And it's all confidence is, well, first off, the word confidence means with faith, right? With faith. And so it essentially means that you're projecting best case scenarios into the future, right? Into the world. And fear is the opposite of that. Fear is the negative side of faith, right? Fear is projecting the worst case scenario into the world. And so confidence comes from hope and belief. And I'm spiritual. I don't know, your listeners, they believe in God, the universe, whatever, but I'm spiritual. I believe, that God loves me and that, he wants the best for me. And that gives me a hope for the future. And so no matter what I'm doing in my life, whether I'm getting on a podcast or about to teach a class or about to close a real estate deal or going to go deal with my kids or trying to build a relationship with whoever, whatever I'm doing in my life, I believe that God is with me in all those things, and that gives me confidence and that gives me hope and for, projecting the best future out there. And so I literally, I feel like that's my greatest strength or tool, I guess, that I can use is hope for the future, because I know that, and which is confidence, and it's because I have hope for the future. So I don't know if that answers that.
Oh my gosh, no, but that's really interesting. I that resonates with me. I love God, and that is like, I look at all the wins and losses that I've had in life, and I've had some really, really devastating things that should have devastated me, sort of losses. And it's just like, well, but I have this hope that transcends, like, okay, well, I have this life here and now, but I have a greater hope. And that just makes me think like, well, just do your best over here on this side of heaven. And there's more. And so it's like, we can just keep going.
That's it. And the reality is life is going to throw us curveballs. Like, it's not always just this, rainbows and sunshine. Like, there are going to be times where bad things happen. That's just the reality, but you can, in those times, I feel like you can, approach it a couple ways. You can be, the victim of a situation, or you can be the creator of a situation. And, growing up, my mom was just the epitome of that, man. Like, my mom, before I ever read any books about mindset or positivity or, law of attraction, any of that stuff, like I watched my mom, just utilize that to change our lives. My parents split up. My dad was running a business and, ended up moving out of the country. And so my mom was left with, these 4 kids and raising them all on her own. And it was just a challenging time. I mean, all of a sudden she's having to work multiple jobs and trying to take care of multiple kids. And that's challenging. Like, there's nobody that's going to look at that situation and be like, well, just smile,
Smile and keep your head up. Come on, honey.
You're going to be okay.
It.
You'll get through it. Like, we all know that we're going to get through those kind of things if we do that, but still you have to, it's how you approach it. And, my mom would just approach this in the most positive way. Like, I remember asking her one time, her side of the story, later in life. And she was telling me that when some days it was just so tough to even get out of bed, she would say, right? But she always did. And she said, when I couldn't get out of bed for myself, I would do it for you kids. And what I found out was that if I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, essentially, right? These small little things, we could get through any situation, right? And so my mom, so you think of that mentality, that mindset, it's shrinking it down into these small little steps. And if she was ever stressed or, which I'm sure she was, emotionally, physically, all the above, right? But like, I swear on my life, I never knew, because she was just the happiest person. She believed that, laughter brings, happiness, and happiness is positivity, and positivity breeds success, and just approach everything with happiness. But it's because of what you focus on, right? If you focus on things that you can't control, then how shitty things are going to continue to be shitty. But if you focus on what you can control, you can then create the situation. So.
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. Well, and to think, like, you have a family, and I have a family, and it's like, I can't imagine, going about my own 2 children solo without my amazing husband who does so, it's such collaboration between us, that 4 kids on your own and making it work with a smile on your face.
Oh, geez.
That's extraordinary. Mom is amazing.
Oh, amazing. And it's perspective for me too, because I totally agree with you, by the way. Like, being an adult now, being a parent now, and now looking back at an even different perspective, I'm like, how in the world did you juggle that, right? And juggle that with such grace, just the way you did is incredible. And it's perspective for me, because no matter what I'm going through, and this sounds bad, this is going to sound bad how I say this, but no matter what I'm going through, I look at someone who has it harder than I do, right? And that might sound bad, but it puts things into perspective of like, okay, this deal is, it's tough to get to close, or maybe it didn't close, or maybe, these, whatever it is, something that's happening. And it's like, okay, let's put it into perspective here. You're okay. You're going to be just fine. Fear, uncertainty, and you even look at 2020, right? Uncertainty is the epitome of 2020. There's just this, so much uncertainty out there, and what was going on, the coronavirus, but overcoming uncertainty is just key to growth and progression and uncertainty. So uncertainty, first off, it comes from things happening that are outside of our external, environment, right? Things that we don't understand, we can't control. And I believe that we combat that kind of stuff by asking specific questions. Like the quality of our life and our, performance, or really anything we're doing, is really linked to the questions that we ask ourselves. And if you you think about this, like you ask your brain a question, it has no other option but to go about starting to answer that question, whatever you feed it, right? And so putting one foot in front of the other, that's what my mom just kept doing, asking the right questions. The tough part though is a lot of times we ask the wrong questions, right? The stinking thinking type stuff. We ask questions like, gosh, why does this always happen to me? Why this, why now, why whatever, things that we can't control, which means our uncertainty increases because we're asking questions about things we can't control. And so now it's more out of control and we become more uncertain. But if we ask questions, in fact, the Navy SEALs have this thing called the 3-foot world or something. And I think that's what they call it. And essentially in the height of uncertainty, you bring it down into these basic questions of like, what can I control right now, right? And then what happens is you answer that question. And when you answer that question, you define, your brain goes to work defining what you can control. You choose it, you act upon it, and you move forward, define what you can control, move forward towards it. And then you get this hit of dopamine, and then you rinse and you repeat. So, people thinking that it's just an anomaly. No, it's not. It's asking the right questions. And when we do that, right, and we continue to move forward, uncertainty fades and, your confidence once again grows, and then progress is made. And then all of a sudden you're talking to people about how to do those same things, which is an awesome thing.
It is really interesting how uncertainty can just wreak havoc on people in general. And I think that we've had it so easy, such a cushioned, we get to live in air-conditioned buildings, or for me, a heated room. I've got a little heater down here by my feet. Like, we get to live this really easy life for those of us in first world countries, to be specific, right? And so we're so used to being in control, or thinking and believing that we're in control. Like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to get my groceries. I'm going to go out to dinner. I'm going to turn my laundry machine on, have my coffee. Like we can just do these things so easily that we forget how fragile we really are. And that lack of gratitude that is like, wow, this is a gift. Like every single thing is such a gift, to just receive it and to be grateful and say, it could go away at any moment. So I'm going to enjoy it with like amazing happiness and gratitude.
Totally. Gratitude is key, I don't know who is credited as saying this. I always credit Tony Robbins, but he says, life is happening for you, not to you, right? Mm-hmm. And that is so true. I'm one of the classes that I was teaching, I'll never forget this. The guy's name was Derek, and he was telling me the story about his aunt who, and I aspire to be like this, man, because I'm not. Let's be honest. It's easy to be positive and happy and, growth oriented when everything's going great, but when things aren't, that's the most important time. And he tells me that he grew up with his aunt, and she had been working through Christmas, multiple jobs, like making sure that they had Christmas. And she had just got her paycheck or something, and walked in and cashed it, had the cash, goes to walk in the house, pulls the keys out to open the door, and then gets upstairs and realizes that the cash has fallen out somewhere along the way there, right? So he runs down, sees where the cash had fallen out of her pocket or whatever and into the snow, and like somebody had scooped up the snow. It was a fresh snow, he said, right? And he saw like this scoop in the snow, and he started bawling, and he's like, dude, I didn't start to cry because I wasn't going to get Christmas. I started to cry because I knew my auntie had worked so hard for that. And he walked up and told his auntie or whatever, and she just was like, oh, child, like, don't even worry about that. Like, that's a blessing to somebody else. That's a blessing. They must have needed it more than we did. And geez, dude, like, I would like to think I would react that way in that situation, but I probably wouldn't. But here's the thing. That's the only way that's serving, right? That's so wise, because it's the only way that is serving. Harboring hate or, frustration or pity doesn't get you anywhere, right? But remembering that in the height of uncertainty or challenges, wherever we're going through, is, guys, so important. Something I'm trying to learn more and more, as we go through life.
But I think that it's something that you have to like learn and churn. Like you learn it for a certain level in life, and maybe you come to a point of acceptance, and then you go through another churning in life because you're not stagnant, you're growing, and that growth process is messy and uncomfortable, and you've gotten almost like staircases or an escalator, right? And you're going up and it's getting better. It's like, oh, look how easy this is. Oh, I'm going to go up a level. Oh, that kind of little bit of pain. So it might make a little sense. Like we might feel like we've been successful in some areas, and then we go through that growth spurt, but we couldn't have gone through that growth spurt like a baby, right? A baby can't just all of a sudden go through puberty. They have to like go through all the growing pain and get their teeth and, you know, all the stuff, right?
That's it. Have you ever read the book The Alchemist before?
Oh, I haven't. It's on the list. It's on my future list.
And all your readers, you go read The Alchemist, and I'll tell you, it's a story, you know, and it's exactly what we talked about. I mean, I could give a premise of the story, but there's so many bits and pieces. You want me to give a premise of the story? Like
Absolutely. Yes.
One of my favorite books. I swear to God, there's books that I read every year. That one I read 3 times last year is the best. Okay. And it's this boy that lives in Spain, and he's a shepherd, and he has this dream. It depicts him like by an old abandoned church underneath this tree, and he has this dream that there is treasure buried in the pyramids of Egypt. And he looks at that as, I think they call it like his personal legend, and I call it a definite major purpose, like whatever drives you, right? That goal. And he decides he's going to sell all of his sheep and go on pursuit of his personal legend, crosses over the desert, over the ocean into Africa, gets all of his money stolen day one. And it depicts him sitting in this city square, and he said, everyone's gone. He doesn't know anybody. He has no more money. And he says something along the lines of like, I can view myself as a poor victim of a thief or as an adventurer looking for his treasure, right? And that's key, because in life, and no matter what we're going through, it's everything is how we perceive it to be, right? Everything happens, nothing happens outside the mind. It's all how we perceive it to be. So he perceives him, or he decides to view himself as an adventurer looking for his treasure. Next day, he sees this crystal merchant that has like the crystal's all dusty, and he's hungry. The boy's hungry, dude. He wants some food. He goes to the crystal merchant. Is like, hey, do you have, you know, if I clean up your crystal, you're not going to sell any of this unless if it's dusty. If I clean it off, will you give me some food? And the crystal merchant doesn't say anything. Well, now it's like he has to make a decision too, right? And this is in life too. Sometimes we don't know what the outcome will be, but we have to make a decision. Do I go a different direction, or do I clean the crystal and just pray to God that he feeds me, right? Well, he decides to clean the crystal, and then the crystal merchant takes him to lunch. And he says, you know, you didn't have to clean that crystal. I would have, you know, it's part of my religion that if I see somebody that's hungry, I have to feed him. And the boy's like, well, what the hell, dude? Like, why did you make me clean the crystal? He's like, because I knew that you needed to clean the crystal to feel worthy of, you know, lunch. And then they work together. He learns a new language. He makes the crystal merchant a lot of money. He makes a lot of money. He, you know, makes more money than he had initially, crosses over goes back on pursuit of his personal legend, loses a bunch of money, makes more money, loses money, makes more money, almost dies, makes it to the pyramids, and starts digging up his treasure. And as he's digging up this treasure, some guys come, thieves or whatever, come and start beating him to death, right? And at the end, you know, as he's like about to die, and this is crazy too, because he says, I'm okay if I die right now, because I died on pursuit of my personal, you know, my personal legend, like on pursuit of, you know, what was bringing meaning into my life. And they ask him, like, what are you doing here anyway? And he's like, I'm digging for treasure, right? Like yells it out. And they're like, dude's nuts. Like, dude's crazy. Like, leave him alone, you know? And then one circles back though. And I love this part. One circles back and he says, don't you know you shouldn't, you know, cross the desert looking for treasure? I had a dream once that there was treasure buried in Spain underneath this tree by an old abandoned church, which is where the boy had his initial dream. And he said, you didn't see me crossing the desert looking for that, right? And the boy just starts to laugh. And that's another thing though. They both had the same dream, right? So think about this. They both had the same experience, the same dream that there was treasure buried somewhere else that they had to travel to. One person pursues it. The boy pursues that, has experienced all these ups and downs, dude, trials, everything, and is okay if he dies because he's experienced those things. The other person turned into a cynic, a thief, is now trying to steal money from people. Same dream, different actions led to different outcomes, right? And then obviously the boy crosses over, digs up, back into Spain, digs up the treasure. But it's all about how the journey
had to go all the way back.
All the way back, right? But the thing is, if he would have just dug it up right in the beginning, like you said, an infant hitting puberty or whatever, we have to go through the steps, but it's this continual reminder that we have to go through it. If he would have just dug it up right in the beginning, he wouldn't have had the life experiences. He wouldn't have enjoyed it, and he wouldn't have kept it. It's one thing to acquire wealth. It's another thing to keep it. So anyway, I love that book. You should read it for sure.
It sounds like a book I should be reading. My kids are a little older. They're 12 and 10, like old enough to receive. Sounds like a really good family read.
They would read. They would love it. I promise you, it's a great family read. It's awesome.
Oh, that is really powerful. So what are some of if you don't mind, like what are some of the things that have forged you along the way that have made you grateful for where you are and better prepared for the next challenge?
I love that question. There's a lot, there's a lot. One is growing up for sure. I mentioned that my mom was a single mom. Well, I was the man of the house, man. I had a front row seat to a lot, and I wouldn't say that we were, in poverty, but we definitely saw struggles, I mean, I had a front row seat to cars being repossessed and houses, being foreclosed on that we had to move out of, and, the pantry dwindling with food. Those things were challenging, man. And just like having this new identity of the man of the house, I felt this sense of responsibility that like I had to do something for myself. I had to do something for my family. And that forced me to take massive action. I started my first business when I was 16. I cleaned people's blinds that they had in their home. It was a great job, great business. But it made me very curious about wealth, those struggles, and having to work. My buddies, aren't having to work, and I always had to work. And I remember like that was challenging to me because, they're all having fun and I'm having to go to work. And I thought this sucks. My perspective is this sucks. And, I grew up in a place where it snowed like you do, and waking up in the mornings and having everyone, all these kids, well, first they have their dads to help them shovel the snow, but they didn't even have shovels. They had snow blowers. We didn't have a snow blower.
That's a big difference. If you don't live in a snowy area, the difference between shoveling and snow blowing is night and day.
Huge difference. Huge difference. And I remember just laying in bed, man, and I would just pray that somebody would come and snow blow my driveway. It rarely happened. But waking up every morning, then like forcing myself to get out there and serve my mom, because I sure as shit wasn't going to have my mom do it. Shags. I don't know, just hit a little memory chord right there. I don't know. But here's the thing though, that I'm so grateful for that, because what that did is it showed me that as shitty as it was to wake up early in the morning, man, and get out in the cold and shovel, dude, it was a service to my mom, and that made me feel good about myself. And it also helped me realize that I call them separators, it's very rarely that we accomplish things that we accomplish more than we truly feel like we deserve. But those separators make you feel like you deserve things. And that is a separator, getting up and doing things that other people view as hard, or even the past you view as hard, right? And those little separators forge you into always wanting to do those things, right? Because you see the growth that happens there, and just seeing it from a different perspective of how that work and that hard work, man, that hard work, that sacrifice, really led into everything else that I was doing in life. Like success takes sacrifice in the short term for long-term gains. Long-term success comes from a whole bunch of short-term sacrifices. And that work that I'm doing to sacrifice for my, family, to provide income, passive income, apartments, all those kind of things, it's no harder than what it was waking up early and going to shovel snow in the cold. It's just a different type of hard, So I know I can do that shit because I've already done that. I've been there, done that. I got it. No worries. Confidence grows. So there's a lot of those little things that have forged me like into that growth, right? And gratitude. And I'm not the most successful multifamily investor out there. I'm not the best instructor, teacher, or whatever, because I teach classes a whole bunch, but I'm grateful for sure. Very grateful, because my life is very different, very different. My life's different than it was even 5 years ago, let alone growing up. It's a very, very different life. And I'll forever be grateful for that. I never want to lose that. So.
You are the alchemist. You realize that. Like, this is why the story is like so dear to your heart. Like, it's almost like reading your personal tale. You had to like, the snow blowing is almost like the equivalent of polishing up that crystal and stuff, like in order for you to feel worthy in the journey and everything. And I think it's also a part and course for humans who are willing to engage the journey. But like, since you just kind of gave the premise of the story and now you're sharing this, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you are the alchemist. Yes. But what's funny is we all have them, though. We all have those little things that if we took a second, and this is why I think I'll forever be grateful for opportunities to tell my story, because having opportunities to tell your story makes you think back of, well, shit, what is my story? And I remember the first multifamily investment class I ever went to. I remember sitting there thinking, dude, I would love to be like, this guy's up here telling a story, right? And I'm like, man, I would love to be that dude. Like, I'm gonna have a great story. And I would sit in bed, and this is so powerful. I didn't even realize what I was doing, but I do now, and it's very powerful, which is I would tell my story, not just to where I was, but I would tell my story even like, and then I closed this deal, that deal, this deal, this happened, and that happened. And none of that had happened, right? That's the future. But I was telling my story because it's, something that I wanted to do. And then all of a sudden you start to view these things in a different light, because your story can help you or hurt you, right? So many times we get stuck in, well, this is where I'm at because this is my story. This is what happened to me. This is how I grew up. These are the challenges that I've had. This is whatever, right? And we get stuck in that story. But somehow, and this is like, luck. I feel like life is sometimes I get lucky. And I feel like I got lucky because somehow I started to tell that story in the form of positive, not negative, and this is where I am because of this. Like, same thing, right? It's the same thing that happened. And that's why it led to this versus, well, because of this, now I don't have this, right? I just started to reframe, it's a different perspective. And and once again, maybe that's luck. I don't know, but I'm so grateful for it because it drove change and still drives change in my life. So.
Isn't it powerful? It's like rewriting the narrative and just going through. If life was a script, you go through and it's like, let's just edit and let's tell the story from a different perspective. And it's like strike through and shift from scarcity mindset to abundance mindset, or shift from, and just like rewriting the exact same script or narrative from a different perspective.
Oh, it's exactly it. And we have the ability to do that, man. The human race is the only species that can create new things. Like, a sheep creates wool, period, or creates, like we can wake up and whatever it is that we can create. And that's an amazing thing to remember, but we can only do that if we, if we take ownership and put away the victim side, right? Take ownership for our journey, take ownership for rewriting that script, like you said. I love that.
I have to go back to the sheep though. The sheep make really good lamb chops. I just had to.
Oh, gosh, I need to come up with a new analogy. I came up with it on the fly, and you're right.
I probably shouldn't go there. Not everyone will appreciate that.
No, that's funny. Oh my gosh. That's funny. If you don't think that's funny, then you know what? You need a different perspective. Okay. Rewrite your story.
Rewrite it and laugh. You know what? I could go into that. I have so many ways to make this so much funnier. I wish I could talk for another 2 hours, because I appreciate the power of your approach to life and the narrative that you are choosing to write for your life and for your future. And that it's just amazing what that is doing for you, for your family. But I just want to encourage you also that the ripple effect, and I'm a huge believer in the ripple effect. Some people, might call it the butterfly effect, but just by nature of you telling your story, by nature of you living your life in a particular way, even as a teenager, it just casts a pebble into I always picture like a lake up here where I live. Like you throw that pebble in there and then it just ripples out, and you don't know who and what that ripple touches or how strong that ripple is, but it's really cool because you're having this really powerful ripple effect in the world. And in my opinion, it's a very positive one. So let me add that. It's a positive ripple.
No. Yeah. There we go. I hope so. Yeah, I love that. And it's, it's interesting because that drives me so much, it drives me so much, like, to have an impact, and I was just having a company meeting. So we have our investment side, which is multifamily capital partners. And then we have an education company that's called Multifamily Mindset. And we call it the Maui meeting. And each month I get together with all the employees through a Zoom, and we have a meeting, right? And we were just talking about why I started the company even. And the education company, the reason I started that is I was at my buddy's funeral, and a really good buddy of mine, grew up together, played baseball together all our whole lives. And just flying home from that funeral was, it was just situations like that make you think of your life, right? And how you want to be remembered. And I remember flying home and just being like, I want people to, show up to my funeral and be like, that dude changed my effing life. That dude changed my life. And so I want to, but in order for me to do that, you have to put yourself out there. You have to do big things and scary things, and whatever that is. You have to make a choice to do those kind of things. And but that's how we create. Choice is how we create. And so that first off, that's why we started the education company, because the investment company, listen, that will change my life. That changed my life. My family's life, sure, but my investors aren't going to show up to my funeral and be like, that guy got me a 25% return, and that changed my life. Like, that's not going to happen. They're going to be grateful. It's not going to happen. But these, individuals who come to our trainings and learn how to acquire apartments, but it's more than just that though. It's mindset. We're huge on mindset. We're huge on just everything that we've talked about. We haven't talked about real estate this whole time. It's because really my biggest passion that I could talk about for freaking hours is that mindset, ownership. It's because I played the victim for a long time in my life, longer than I've probably played the ownership card. And choice, I believe, it's the most spiritual thing that we can do. People will say, if you would ask them the most spiritual thing, they'd probably say pray or go to church or whatever. Is choice. We choose to go to church. We choose to pray. We choose to serve. It's choice, right? Choice is how we create. It's how we become worthy of guidance. It's how we show faith. And how we gain confidence. It's choice. If we don't choose to do something, then we can't have guidance. And too many times we sit back and worry about making a choice because we think it's finite, and it's not. Once we make a choice, then we can get guidance in either direction. But if we do not make a choice, we can't get guidance. We can't progress. And, if someone isn't, I'll say this, somebody listening to this, if they aren't living up to their potential, they're not creating, they're probably not creating. And that's usually because they're stuck in indecision, or which makes them a victim of something or somebody else, right? So we have to make choices to be able to truly create. And I think that's the best thing that we can do with our lives, good or bad, man, because we can always pivot no matter where we're at.
Okay, well, this is so profound. It's just so amazing. And I want to point out that there's this like transition between the transition. Like you could be the victim for so many years. And then the moment you make that choice to no longer be a victim and to make a choice in your life, it's amazing. Like, okay, victim, let's just say for 20 years, what you can accomplish in 3 to 5 years, once you make that choice to no longer be that, it just completely annihilates, just diminishes the 20 years. And then I can look back. For me, I can look back and say like, why didn't I make that choice sooner? Like, wow, I'd be like so, but that's the narrative I had to walk in order to get to where I am. So, just acceptance, like, okay, well, that's it. Move on. Past doesn't define you.
Oh, it's so many, like there's big decisions like that. And then there's so many just day-to-day little decisions with choices and how we decide to view things. Smallest things, man. I was just talking about this too. It's so funny to me because, so I'm driving down the road here and this black sports car is cutting me off, right? Cutting off a few other people, cuts me off, and they're flying through. And I'm like, geez almighty, who is this freaking guy? And now I'm going to turn left and he's going straight. And I get in the left lane. I'm like, I'm going to freaking mean mug this. I'm going to mean mug them, And I pull up the left turn lane, let him know I'm not happy. I roll my window down and I'm like, peek over, give him this, mean mug look. And I look over and it is this blue-haired old lady with gigantic glasses, okay? Gigantic glasses. And immediately I was like, this is the coolest chick in the world. This is the coolest chick in the world. Like nothing changed. Nothing about that environment changed except for my perspective about that, right? Which once again, nothing happens outside the mind. It's all how we perceive it to be. But there's these little choices in our life. Like we can either choose to be irritated by something, or we can choose to not be irritated or see the, the greatness in something, or choose to just eliminate that something. So much in life, I believe like it's so much is certainly making choices to do things, but it's also making choices to remove things. There's so many things that just don't move the needle. Remove it. I don't need to talk about, how so-and-so and so-and-so are idiots. And I don't go down that route. It takes too much energy,
I don't, yeah. You know what? I'm very cautious about what I allow my brain to sweat over. And it's like, do I really need, if I'm working out in the gym and I'm sweating because I'm lifting weights, it's because I want to get stronger. And if I am like having a brain that is sweating over thoughts that aren't going to progress me forward or impact my life or my world or whatever in a positive way of growth, why am I thinking about it? It's like, just stop sweating over it. I can't change mask mandates, whatever. I don't need to discuss it anymore. Like, let me move on. I don't need to sweat over it.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. The mask mandates, like the great thing. It's like, you just focus on what you can control, right? Take ownership for all of that stuff. And the news, I'm so cognizant of that too. Like I don't watch the news, and I don't, because news it's negative. Like I don't need to know or want to know about a whole bunch of people that got murdered in some movie theater. And it's not because I'm, apathetic. That's because that affects me to my core at a deep level. And I don't even blame the news for that. Like the news, what their job is? Their job is to sell the news. And guess what sells more? It sells more than anything is negativity. So that's their job. Their job is to sell the news. Our job is to not be dumb consumers and, take in good stuff. Like that's our job.
It's so funny. It's my husband was just telling me earlier today, actually, that it was at 800%. They did this big research thing, and negative news sells 800% better than positive news and everything. And I've said before, I think on different episodes of the podcast, that like the news is designed to make money. It's all about
Yes.
advertising. So like they're selling. And so, we actually can control the news to some extent by just censoring them. Like, well,
That's it. Yeah. Being
I
a
don't need
smart
that.
consumer, man, turning it off and focusing on other things. Totally agree.
Yeah, what you focus on grows. And so being very mindful of that. Oh my gosh, Tyler, you are I already knew I told you before off air, I'm like, this is going to be exceptional. We're going to have a great time. And, and I said, no pressure. Right. But, what a great time. And what a great, I know that this is going to serve a lot of people well, because these are things that are common to human beings. And this is nothing like, we're not snowflakes. We share a lot of common experiences. They're unique, they're different, but they bring about the same struggle, the same growth, the same potential, the same. So I just appreciate you just having this amazing dialogue.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I do. I love, there's so much value in what you do. I listen to your podcast. I've listened, and I love your little blips that you do. Like you interview people, but then I also love your blips that you do with just you spitting knowledge, right? The little smaller blips. I love them. And I eat it up, dude, because that kind of stuff, I can't listen to it enough, so to have an opportunity to be a voice on your podcast, always humbling, always grateful. I appreciate it a ton. So thank you.
Oh my goodness. To all you fantastic listeners, you are amazing. And I am so excited for the path that you are on, and live in acceptance. Don't judge yourself. Don't criticize yourself over where you are and what you did in the past, or like focus on where am I now? And what's the next choice that I need to make to live the life of my dreams, and visualize that life of your dreams. Just like Tyler was talking about, even definitely speaking it out loud is really powerful. So take time and tell yourself that narrative and live it out in your mind. And until next time, you guys go find your freedom. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Ask Me How I Know. This episode was brought to you by 3 Keys Investments. They are dedicated to helping people like you, my awesome listeners, develop passive income and legacy wealth through multifamily investing. Feel free to check out their website, 3keysinvestments.com, to see if there's an offering that will help your portfolio grow and meet all of your needs. If you haven't already rated, reviewed, subscribed, liked, all of those bells and whistles, I would be absolutely honored if you would do that for Ask Me How I Know. Thanks again, and go make it a great day.